Hello and welcome to the Old Garage number 47. I'm Wild Bill and got a couple questions. I think some cool silliness. Got a cool shout out, that's for sure. So let's get it rolling. Now the first question I have came from the last of the Old Garage, and this is from James MacArthur. And here's the question. It says, today we tout how much horsepower a car may have, or its acceleration times, or even how much it costs. And while I'm sure that they brag about such things back in the vintage era, are there other things that cars were measured by? Oh yeah, and really, things haven't changed a whole lot. When it comes to the vintage era, I will let you know that acceleration times weren't necessarily a thing, because we talk 0 to 60 in X amount of seconds, but back in, prior to World War I, most cars couldn't even get to 60. So acceleration times wasn't really, lauded, but absolutely horsepower was. Also, the engine displacement, how big the engine was. And this was touted in two different ways. I'm in America, and on our side of the pond, how big the engine was touted. Because, if you have a bore and a long stroke, which makes a big displacement, whether it's in cubic inches or in liters, this is going to make the car more torquey. And you need a lot of torque to get through roads that are basically made of mud. So that was a big deal over here. But you go to the other side of the pond, and the opposite was true, because you started seeing rather early countries, actually levying taxes on importing of cars based on the engine displacement. The smaller displacement, the lower the taxes. You also saw road taxes happening at that time, within a country, no matter what side, no matter where the car was built. And those were usually based on the size of the engine. I think there's a lot of countries where that's still the case. You also had a number of races on the continent that were separated by classes of car, and the smaller engined cars were also those that were most likely going to be production cars. And so, they got a lot of, hey, we're the small engine, but it won this race. That was very common. Which brings up pedigree. Pedigree was also very big in talking about a car back then. How many races did this car win or place or show, the model? Because, again, going back in that day, pre-World War I, the difference between a race car and a production car, in many cases, was nothing more than one had headlights and fenders and the others didn't. And so, yeah, how race winning is the car? That was a big deal back then. Also, ease of use, okay? How, simple was it to operate this car? And admittedly, for the first few decades of the automotive industry, the electric cars had that hands down, because they were really easy to use. It wasn't until, Kettering got his, starter and ignition system going that, gas-powered cars would really compete. And unfortunately, Abner Doble, he made, a steam car that was, just about as easy to start, but that wasn't until after the World War, and, and it was really the swan song of the steam car, but yeah, ease of use, that was also touted. Ease of repair. That that was a big deal. How easy is, if it breaks down, how hard is it to get it back on the road? That was also touted, particularly with the Model T. There's an old joke, dating back to 1912, that says, hey, why did Henry Ford magnetize the rear bumper of the Model T? And the answer is because it would pick up the parts that fell off. But actually, that was significant. If it does break down, how hard is it going to be to get yourself back on the road? Those were things that were touted back then, and that's not all that different from today, except ease of repair, perhaps. But if you're going to have a car and you're going to drive it and you're going to run it down the road, you're going to find something that you like personally about it. And that's another thing that they would talk about, is how could you modify the car, okay, to make it personable, to make it your own. That was also touted, and that's where we start getting into your hot rods, which hot rodding did start, not long after World War One. Look what I've done to this car. Look at this engine I found an aircraft engine, and I put it into this thing. I mean, look at this. Wow. Okay, that was also very common back then, and still is to this day. So, really, outside of the acceleration, whatever, when you look at a automotive advertisement today, the way that they advertised, cars back in that day, really hasn't changed, other than how they present it, because now everything's done digitally. Okay, they don't have real footage anymore. They just put it all into a computer. But back then, same ideas. The car is reliable. The car is durable, because durability, another big one. Okay, it's got to survive the roads that it's on. All right, and you see that today. It's got to be economical. Again, that goes into the engine size, and it's got to, and you just that's how it was back then, and still is. So, good question. Thank you, James. All right, next question I have actually came from the community page, and this was interesting. It's how common was it to have a make of car named after someone other than the company founder or chief engineer? Very common, quite frankly, especially when you have multiple people involved in the company. When you have, one or two people, it'll often be named after that person, or maybe they'll put their names together, like Errol Johnson or Roshi Schneider or something like that. But naming a car after something other than the people involved, yeah, it happened a lot. Especially when you get into, the companies, the corporates that formed to create a company, and how they're going to name it, it varies. Like look at Mercer. It's named after Mercer County. Okay, a location. You have Laganda. It was named after another location. A place name. Then you have companies named after people that aren't involved. You have Cadillac, named after the founder of Detroit. You have Mercedes. It was named after Jelinek's daughter, who never really had anything to do with the company. And there's more than that. Sometimes, like Fiat, you would have, them just create a new, name for everything going on. Create a new word for it. It was actually very common to make a name, based on some, that's not based on the people involved, but based on something else. Animals were often used. Some of them real animals. You had wolf, you had bear, etc. Then you had fake animals, fantasy animals like phoenix and griffin. Sometimes it would be on things that they thought that would just sound really cool, like Star, you know, or Minerva or something like that, where there's not a direct, line to the people, but it was just a cool sounding name and they liked it for the car. So yeah, I mean, probably better than half, not better than that, about half, I'd say, of the over 3,000 makes of cars that were made back in the day were not named after the people that made them. It was very common, quite frankly, more common than you'd think. So, well, those are the questions I had. Yeah, not a whole lot today, sorry. But I do have some silliness. And the silliness I have today is all about Laurel and Hardy. Okay? These guys were renowned for their slapstick comedy and for destroying Model Ts. And so today, I'm going to give you my top 5 favorite methods that Laurel and Hardy used to destroy a Model T Ford. And at number 5, I have running it into something. Usually it was a pole, okay? But you never knew. It could have been a pole, it could have been a wall, it could have been another car, you don't know, but they would just run it. I mean, driving this thing, and mind you, they didn't use things like safety equipment. They're just going and running it into something. Those are pretty darn funny. That's my number 5, running it into something. Now, number 4, this was a cool, go find it. Cracking a Model T open like an egg, cracking it open. They did this. And here's the picture. I mean, it just looks silly. I mean, you've cracked a Model T open like an egg. Is that ridiculous? Yeah, yes, it's ridiculous. Okay? Now, my number 3, squishing the car. And doing it with a train in this case. What they did is they had the car go through a tunnel, with them driving, and and a train goes through, and the train doesn't destroy the car but squishes it, so it comes out looking totally off kilter, and yet they're still in it. They shouldn't have survived, but I thought just the look of that Model T being squished that way, I think it's crazy. Now, of course, probably the most famous one is my number 2, and that's crushing the car like an accordion between 2 trolley cars. Yeah, I mean, this is in a museum somewhere, but it literally, trolley, the car is now totally crushed between the 2 of them. Looks like an accordion. I mean, Weird Al Yankovic could play this Model T. And yeah, that's my number 2. I mean, it's iconic, it's silly, but it's not my most favorite. My favorite act that these 2 goofballs did with a Model T is running it through a sawmill and sawing the car right down the middle in half. Oh my word. I mean, saw a car in half. I mean, are you serious? Would you do this? Yes, they would do it. They did do it. And here's the proof. These guys were trying to destroy Model Ts faster than, Henry Ford could make them. And they were unsuccessful. But then again, when you're talking, the 1920s, you could buy a Model T, a used one, for next to nothing. I mean, $5 could buy you a Model T. So why not use that car to destroy for comedic effect? And they did wonderfully, and those are my 5 favorite. Okay. So, shout out time. And I'll let you know, these guys don't know I'm doing this, but I'm doing it anyway. And it's a channel, it's a fun channel. Check it out. Two Guys and a Ride. What they do is they go out to various car shows, whatever, and they will talk about all kinds of cars and walk through them, go through them, and show you what what these cars are. Okay, I've watched a number of their episodes. It's great videos to watch. You're going to learn a lot because they're going to talk to the owners in most cases of these cars and really get you intimate with the car. So, Two Guys and a Ride. Check it out. Go to their channel, like and subscribe. And if you haven't done a like and subscribe here, do that, please, too. But that's what we have for the old garage number 47 today, and I will see you next time. Peace.